Welcome back to another week of Hello Ladies, where feminism meets pro wrestling. You might notice some things are different this week if you're watching this. Megan is sick with the vid, so this is going to be a short one this week. I did go to AEW Grand Slam last night, so I'm just going to talk a little bit about my experience with and this being my first AEW live event. And of course, it happened to also be a special event at that. So let's get right on into it. I want to say that all of the wrestling and everyone who worked on that show, top notch. Like chef's kiss, they did amazing. I do have some criticisms, but it doesn't actually have anything to do with the wrestlers. It has to do with Arthur J. Stadium's parking specifically. And again, just Tony Khan stacking a card. So, and I'll get into it. So, first of all, when we got to the stadium, my friend is from the Bronx that I went with. So she's familiar with the area. We get there. There is no parking anywhere near the building. And we keep getting directed to the AEW parking, which is great that they had people there to do that. But it's like far away from the building. Now, both her and I are completely sorry, my dog's about to jump at the cat. Cheddar, no. No. So yeah, both me and Priscilla are, you know, people who have full advantage of their bodies. And so doing that walk wasn't a problem, but for other people, it really could have been an issue. Also, walking, we were a mile and a half away from the building where the parking was, under a bridge, and they did bring in extra lighting. Those two. They did bring in extra lighting, but even still, like it did not feel the safest walking back to the car, especially since the event went so late. A lot of people left early. I want to say by the main event of Rampage, half the stadium was gone, which uh was terrible for Ricky Starks and Hobbs. But at any rate, back to the parking situation. Oh my gosh. I don't know if it's because Megan's not here that Cheddar and Dobby think that they need to act up. So, yeah, so it's like I'm not doing this alone or what, but I would appreciate less help from them. But yes, so the parking, not only was it a mile and a half away, but to pay for it, like usually I was expecting $20 to $25, maybe 30. No, it was $50 to park. And again, you didn't really have any other options. So on top of like a pricier ticket, you also tossed in this $50 parking. Okay, whatever. So we power walk to the stadium, and there's no like signage to tell you like this way. We're hoping that other people around us know where they're going, which thankfully they did. Although other people came up to us and were like, "Do you know where you're going?" I'm like, "No, we're following these people. That guy's wearing a Stone Cold Steve Austin shirt. Hopefully, this is where we're going. We're going to the same place." Um, we did get there. Getting into the building was fine. They actually surprisingly let my friend bring in her water bottle. That is not a complaint. It was just like a weird thing. I'm used to having the Wells Fargo Center where you can't even bring in a purse. So, my God, Dobby, stop it. Sorry, Dobby. Okay. I'm going to kick them out. So I kicked Cheddar out. Dobby is still here. Why? Because he knows I have a weakness when he starts purring and being all sweet. So anyway, I'm sure I'll be stopping this soon again to kick him out. But yeah. So we get in, we try to get to our seats. We find them. there are people in them. And like we're in the middle of the row is filled. And there's no one. This is a criticism for the stadium, not for AEW, which I believe the parking is probably the same thing. But there was no one to help, like, tell people where to go to their seats or anything like that, or to help with this sort of situation. The show was starting, like, Dynamite had started. So we wound up going a few more rows up where there was empty seating. It was not a sold out show, thank God. And we just grabbed some other seats. It was not that big of a deal, but still very annoying. Thankfully, like, because we did move our own seats, we wound up sitting with nobody else in our direct vicinity. Um, so we got to like put our feet up, and that part was nice. The show, again, absolutely amazing. It was 2 hours of Dynamite and then a special 2 hours of Rampage, and there's probably like a half an hour, I wanna say 15, 20 minutes maybe, in between when Dynamite went off the air and they wrapped up everything because there was some bonus stuff, which I've posted on my, what is it called? TikTok. You can find me at Floundering Adult on there. All the videos are up there of everything that happened either during commercial breaks or after the show went off air. Dobby. And now Dobby is out. So, yeah, that's all up there for the majority of the show, like through all of Dynamite. Everyone pretty much so stayed in their seats. Um, as soon as Dynamite went off the air, now they said prior to Dynamite starting and reminded people during commercial breaks. And then when Dynamite went off the air, Tony Khan actually came out and told everyone, like, stay where you are. We're going to be recording Rampage, and it's a special 2 hours. It's a packed card, which it was. He did not lie. There were some great matches on that. Um, but people like fled. Like entire rows were just gone. The people who stole our seats, they checked out. We considered moving, but also didn't want to at that point. So we were only a few more rows up. But so that is something that maybe Tony Khan should consider in the future when doing these long shows on a Wednesday. We didn't leave, like, the show, we weren't getting out of our seats until, like, to leave until after midnight, on a Wednesday. We got back to, again, my friend lives in the Bronx. We got back to her place at about 1 AM. Um, and that's when we left. Actually, sorry, no, we didn't get back to her place at 1 AM. We got back to the car at 1 AM to leave. So I didn't get home until 4 AM. I was smart enough, thankfully, to have taken the morning off of work. So that part didn't suck. I do recommend doing that if you're going to a Dynamite that is not in your hometown. But yeah, that is something that should definitely be considered. It's a lot to ask of people on a weeknight. People who have kids who are passed out. I will say the biggest difference I noticed between the AEW show and WWE, well, there were two things because I've been to live events at both now. There were far less children at the AEW show, at least in the section I was at. Like, I didn't see a single kid. The first kid I saw was actually when we were leaving. This little girl was just like passed out and her dad was carrying her back to the car. But there were no children. At WWE shows, every single time there is a kid dressed head to toe in John Cena merch every time, who's probably between 5 and 8 years old, losing their mind over my left shoulder. And I don't know why it's always over my left shoulder, but it is. So yeah, there were no kids, at least not in the nosebleeds, which is where we were. Um, and just to also give you an idea, when you could see MJF in the crowd in the box, that box was directly below us, but like, I guess 2 stories or a story down. However, we were in the 300s. So, that is definitely something that should be taken in consideration. It was nice not having that many kids around. I will also say that because, as we've discussed on the podcast before, I have a filthy mouth and I didn't have to worry about the things I was saying, especially, oh, I especially started dropping curses because I was tired. And also, I was so sad when, when the best friends and Penta were eliminated from the battle royal. I forget what it was called, but the golden ticket, I think, is what it was. I didn't think that they would be winning, but I can still be upset that they didn't. So, um, the show itself, the other difference between the AEW and WWE, specifically during Dynamite, any of the backstage interviews, anything that was happening backstage, we did not see as the audience. Like, there was no audio to that. We weren't seeing anything. Um, I only knew that that stuff was happening because I was messaging with Megan, who was at home, sick on her couch watching. So she also got to see then all of what was happening in the arena that people at home couldn't see in basically real time, like a few minutes delay, because I would just take the videos and send them to her. And then for whatever reason, the person that they've charged with being the hype man in between breaks was Justin Roberts. He is an excellent ring announcer. Hyping up the crowd, at least that night, not his forte. And you could see when he was like struggling to get a reaction from everyone because he would just suddenly yell out, "The Acclaimed!" And everyone would go, "Wow," as you might think. Which let's get into the matches. As I said, they were all phenomenal. I've seen both Jericho and um Claudio Cesaro wrestle before, not each other, but separately. But I absolutely love seeing Cesaro do the swing live, and he did that, so I was happy. I was a little sad that he lost the belt, but I'm interested to see what they're going to have Chris Jericho do with it. The second match was the tag team championship, and holy moly, people went nuts. Like, the Acclaimed are so over. It was definitely the right call. I think it was pretty obvious that they were going to be winning because this match was rescheduled so quickly. And usually we don't see rematches in AEW, especially like that. So, um, yeah, they phenomenal. After they won and the um confetti and everything came out, man, the whole audience lost their minds. Like, whatever sound you heard on Dynamite, I'm sure pales in comparison to how loud it actually was in that stadium. And it was really nice. Like, you did see, again, once it went off air, Keith Lee came down and did like respect knuckles with Daddy Ass and the Acclaimed. I was kind of hoping there would be some scissoring, but there wasn't. Oh, the things you wind up saying as a wrestling fan. Um, but it was a nice little show of respect. Of course, Swerve Strickland didn't do it. He waited up the top of the ramp, so maybe there'll be some heat between them for that. Who knows? Um, I don't think I've ever seen Keith Lee wrestle in person. So that was really cool. I love Keith Lee. Um, he just does things that a man of his size traditionally can't. And he's just someone that seems like such a good person. Like, I wish all the happiness in the world to that man. But not that there's anything else wrong with, or anything wrong with any of the other people involved in that. Just, I had to put in my Keith Lee plug. I think the only one I've ever seen wrestle live before was probably Billy Gunn. I believe I saw him in WWE many, many years ago. I was in high school. Maybe when he was part of Chuck and Billy. Maybe. I feel like I've seen him wrestle before. I've met him before. But yeah, it's always cool to see legends like that who are still moving around great from your childhood. We did see Paul White come out later. Love that man as well. So, after that, oh gosh, what was after that? It was a match I was excited for, and I can't think of it. Well, okay, so I'm not gonna go in chronological order anymore, I think. The Orange Cassidy and Pac match, I was so into that. I knew it was gonna be amazing. They always put on great barn burners, as JR would say. Um, and again, I don't think I saw the Bastard wrestle when he was in WWE live. So I think this was my first time seeing him live as well. Obviously, the first time seeing Orange Cassidy, and just fantastic. Maybe my match of the night? Maybe, maybe. It was excellent. I just love how they work together. Everything that they do is just brilliant. Of course, I was heartbroken when Pac took and cheated to win. Did I want Orange Cassidy to win? Of course. Duh. And but I think the fact that they had him win not clean will further their little feud that they have over the course of their careers. The women's match was great. I don't know how much like what people saw at home, but being there in person, I was really impressed with Serena Deeb. And I've said before, like, she's not someone I generally am like that interested in what she's doing. Watching her live, like, yeah, at least in that match, she was very engaging. Like one of those, it was so hard to know like where to look, because all of those women like really turned it out between Britt Baker, Serena Deeb, Toni Storm, and Athena. Just again, amazing. Um, uh, Toni Storm obviously managed to keep her championship, her interim championship. But as awesome as that was, like the whole match, that's not what people are going to remember from that because Saraya debuted. And I don't know if you can really hear it. My throat is a little like groggly because I screamed so loud when her name came up on the screen. I felt my vocal cord like get fucked up like that, like weird, like pop almost. I don't know. I've done it before. I've injured my vocal cords before ever since when I worked with kids with mental health issues. Well, yeah, that's how I initially started out, but then I transitioned to working with just autistic kids. But um I got sick a bunch. And one of the times I got sick working with kids was I got a voice box infection, and I swear my vocal cords have not been the same since. So, um, yeah, my I knew I was gonna be a little like not raspy, but like, I don't know, gargly today, if that makes sense. Like to my ear, and like it feels weird when I talk. I'm definitely in my lower register of my voice. I am not sick. I don't feel sick. I know it's from screaming my head off when Soraya, aka Paige, debuted. Uh, I am so glad she got that reaction. We've talked before on the podcast about what a rough time she had, especially after that um, um, video was released against her will, like without her knowledge. So, I was so glad to see such a strong reaction for her. I am, of course, nervous with her neck. I think anytime someone who has had like a career-ending injury like that, especially to the neck, something that if something goes wrong could be they could be paralyzed or die. Megan has said before she feels very uncomfortable sometimes watching Daniel Bryan wrestle the Edge. There is that like bit of a pit in your stomach. So I imagine we're going to have the same type of thing with Saraya if she does get back in the ring. And I imagine the only reason she signed with AEW was to get in the ring, since WWE would not clear her. Yeah. So I am interested very much so to see what they're going to do with her in AEW. Hopefully, she gets the attention and time that she deserves on air. Um, yeah, and I wish her all of the health and happiness in the world. I truly do. Um, what were some of the others? Oh goodness. I probably should have taken and like pulled up. I took a lot of pictures, but at some point, because my phone started dying and I was gonna have to drive back to Pennsylvania from New York, I stopped taking so many. S Yeah. The others were great on Dynamite. Obviously, it ended with Mox versus, Daniel Bryan, which, I've said before that Jon Moxley is not my favorite wrestler. Um, I'm generally not that into his work, but I know that I'm in the minority on that, and that's fine. Like, not everyone's gonna be your cup of tea, but I am happy that he's the one that won that belt. Um, I think that he's the right choice. He is very much so a locker room leader there. He's been there basically since the beginning, and I think for morale in the back, as well as to kind of steady the ship with fans, for anyone who might be like, "Meh," he's your man. He's the one you go with. So absolutely the right decision. He talked to the fans after Dynamite went off air. Highly recommend going to my TikTok channel and watching that. But I think that was absolutely 110% the right choice. Then we had Rampage, which started there was no, like, dark match in between or anything like that. You really didn't need it. Thank God they didn't do that. Um, it started out and for obviously, I will be putting this out tonight, so spoiler alerts from here on out. Like, if you don't wanna know what happens on Rampage, jump off now, if you're listening on Thursday or before the show Friday. Otherwise, continue on. The show opens up, and again, I don't know what they're gonna show, in the Darby and Sting, and by the way, Sting really hasn't wrestled that much in, New York City. This is, I think, one of his first times, because with WCW didn't really go to, New York, and his run in, WWE was very short with wrestling, so this was one of his first times wrestling in New York City, so that was exciting. To see a 60-plus-year-old man's one of his first times wrestling, the icon, but not wrestling in the city. Anyway, so it was them versus oh god, the remaining members of the Blackpool con no, wow, House of Black, sorry. I did not get a lot of sleep, obviously. So that match, it was good. Um, it was funny because when Sting's handcuffed in the ring, like, you just see him as an audience member just, like, laying in the ring for, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes, just with his arms handcuffed behind his back, not really moving, just, like, laying there half dead, um, while Darby Allin and, uh, Buddy Murphy and Brody King do their whole spiel up on the rampway and stage. Now, when they go off the stage, Darby and Brody, they Brody King, I think, might have been injured. Darby, it's pretty clear was, unless that was Brody's blood all over the back of his head. But like, we could see as audience members them being taken away. First Brody, Darby was out there for the rest of the match, but he was just sitting there with an EMS type person with him, and half of his head was suddenly blood red. So either he cut open the back of his head, or well, like, Brody was bleeding that much that in such a short period of time covered the back of Darby's head. But I'm pretty sure that it was Darby Allin that was injured as well. Um, so hopefully they're both all right. Um, I mean, it was a good match. I did get to see people go through tables. And as someone who watches wrestling often in Philly, obviously we're very excited to see people go through tables. Um, Jade Cardhill's match, it was a squash. Knew that's what it was gonna be, and sure enough, that's what it was. Um, Jungle Boy's match was, against Ray Phoenix. Amazing. Again, knew it was going to be by the work they've done together before. Um, again, I feel really bad for Ricky Starks and, Powerhouse Hobbs because most of the arena cleared half of it was gone by the time Rampage started. I wanna say another quarter left before the end. Um, so there wasn't a lot of people there for that match, and it was great. But I mean, they still got crowd reactions, which is really impressive because everyone was really like, "Bah." Also, everyone thought that the Grand Slam Battle Royal golden ticket thing was going to be the last match, and it just wasn't. That was also excellent. I love seeing over the top battle royals live. Um, I am gonna watch that in person just to or not in person, the recording of it just to see what I might have missed because it's hard to see like where to watch. But yeah, excellent. Um, yeah, overall, highly would recommend going to see AEW live. Live wrestling is just a different experience than watching at home. You don't hear the commentators. Although I do think that if they just had MJF's face as the commentary for the live audience from here on out, that would be fine with me. That was hilarious. It was great. And it's like, and let's go to MJF's face. Ooh, he's not really interested right now. Or ooh, he's concerned, maybe. He's amused for sure. You know, that was a great part. Like, I got to see minus Kenny Omega, everyone else and well, I would have liked to see some more of the women's wrestlers, but of the men, I saw, I think everyone that I wanted to. Glad Adam Page, won the Battle Royal. Looking forward to that. Also thought that was the right call. So Tony Khan delivered. I think he's done a great job picking up the morale again in the locker room and of fans. So that's not an easy feat. So hopefully, everything else smooth sailing for the most part, as much as one can with a large company, for AEW. So, yeah, that's the podcast for this week. Sorry it's short. Megan will be back next week. We are going to Philly, assuming that everyone is healthy, next week. So, yeah, we should be reporting on Dynamite next week. As always, sorry, hustle, loyalty, and respect. Yabadoo.